So hello, I'm Gareth. I'm the Chief Creative Officer at TMW. I'm here to talk to you about one of the standout thoughts that popped into my head during South by Southwest. I was, until this year, a South by virgin. Didn't go there with any particular agenda, but just wanted to go in and kind of see what actually happened, see what I would find. And there was a lot of big things talked about, really. Guillaume's touched on some of them. I'm going to see which button this is. So obviously the makers were there, the 3D printers were there, the 3D scanners were there. There was big talk. There was the next industrial revolution was the title of the keynote speech. So immediately at the start of this conference, big things were landed, and lots of people were getting hyped, lots of people were getting excited. And for good reason. You know, there's a lot of things that, you know, with this technology in your hands and easily accessible to anybody, you know, the future for this technology is pretty exciting. The next thing, of course, disappearing UI. So, you know, there were armies, legions of people talking about, you know, how to use the leap motion, what that's going to do to the way that you interact with products, with things, what glass will do, you know, what happens when you start to automate everything and kind of design yourself out of the picture almost entirely. There was a distinct lack of talk of mobile apps, which actually surprised me. I went there thinking there was going to be some very, very techie talk about different technologies, different apps, that kind of thing. But surprisingly, people were talking about things that are further off on the horizon, I think. Another idea was, of course, the Internet of Things. And I put up there, you know, the connected fridge being the catch-all example that everybody would use for the Internet of Things. But it's no longer about the Internet of Things. People were talking about the Internet of everything. So, you know, there was almost this kind of mild panic about what happens when everything starts to get connected, when your fridge can talk to your TV, can talk to everything, and you've got, you know, all kinds of telemetrics tracking and logging data about you, which of course brings on the big data thing. So we have all this data, and the data's growing, and what are we going to do about it? Well, I've seen that there's a lot of hack jams going on, trying to work out, well, we've got all this data, we don't quite know what to do about it. So I almost started to see a lot of hype and a lot of excitement, and we should all be enjoying that hype and excitement. But I started to kind of think, okay, so what next? What's going to happen when all these come together? How are we going to start to piece together a way to navigate all this stuff? And I went to a talk called Enchanted Objects, which actually just gave me a nice refreshing angle on how to look at, how to design, I'd say, the Internet of Things, but connected devices and the kind of interfaces that we want to use and should be using every day. And I'm going to explain to you a little bit about what a connected object is, an enchanted object is. And Arthur C. Clarke has a very good quote here, which is, any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. And as you can see, Thelma here has got the new Kindle Paperwhite. She's showing it to her friend, and this is a magic book. So this is not just a book, this is a book that contains every other book that's ever been written. So she can think of a book, and she's just thought of a book, probably 50 Shades or something, and they're looking in astonishment at it. So I like this thought of objects having almost magical properties. And it started to help me free up my thinking around, well, what could we possibly design with this kind of new technology? So other examples would be Dorothy's shoes. So Dorothy clicks her heels together a couple of times, and hey presto, she's at home. Now, this could be classed as Google Latitude or navigation, that kind of thing. And I think Google did unleash a shoe, actually, on the public at South by Southwest. I like the Weasley family clock as well. This is what I would say is an almost steampunk version of Foursquare. So you can tell where the kids are at any given time, whether they're lost, whether they're at home, whether they're at their dentist, that kind of thing. So again, it's just taking a normal object and giving it some kind of magical powers. Obviously, Dick Tracy, you know, had the iPhone watch long before anybody else did. So he could use this device to talk to his friends, to communicate, to find out what was going on. And then finally, there was that sword in The Hobbit that glowed when orcs were near. So, you know, this again is a magical property that a physical object can have. And actually, if you start to then think, well, you know, obviously orcs don't exist, but what can we do to our existing things to make them that little bit more useful for us? So I started to kind of realize, really, and a personal kind of thing for me is I think I'm a bit sick of the shiny black slab that I have, you know, the little piece of glass that allows me to swipe and flick and zoom and twist. And I realize that I'm, like this little kid in the sweet shop, he's got his hands against the glass and wants to be physical with stuff, doesn't want to just be kind of trapped behind a piece of glass. And I started to think, are we trying to, with the interfaces that we're building, forgetting about the fact that we are physical beings and that, we want to touch things, we want to move around, we want to exist in this world and not turn into these people. And of course, Paul Daniels, it's about putting a little bit of magic into things as well. I think actually it's not necessarily about making the UI disappear, but at times we need to celebrate these interactions. There are obviously transactional interactions that will need to be done, and we don't really need to know they're happening, but what about celebrating some of the more interesting things? So the talk that I went to started to describe kind of places where some of these enchanted objects might begin to appear, and some of the kind of core human needs that will drive them. These aren't my words. The omniscience is a word that was used in the presentation. So it's about wanting to know everything all the time. Apparently, we are people who want to know the status of things. And we'll even check an app on our phones for the weather forecast when we can probably look outside to tell whether or not it's raining. But here is a thing called the ambient orb. And this orb was born out of the idea that we all dream of having a crystal ball. So this is an orb. He calls it a one-pixel web browser. And essentially, you can program this orb to change color depending on a predetermined set of data that interests you. So if you are a surfer, you can program it to turn green when the swell is good in your favorite spot, so you know without having to check the weather forecast whether or not it's good to go out. Conversely, it could also glow for all sorts of different reasons, whether or not your tickets have been sold for your favorite band, and that could kind of light up a different color for you, so that kind of thing. Next thing is about communication. So we have a desire to effortlessly connect with others. So here is a series of lamps that you give to your friends or your family, and when you're at home, you arrive at home, you switch the lights on, and all the lamps in all your friends' houses go on at the same time. And it's almost like giving everybody that you know and love a little message to say, that I'm home, and it's about an idea of kind of having an almost collective presence in there. Again, whether or not that's something that you would like to do is questionable, but I would imagine if you tied that into your Skype presence, that would actually help members of your family know that I am home, I'm on Skype, why don't you give me a call, instead of having to check on my phone whether or not my mum is on Skype. I could see quite visibly and quite easily. Of course, orcs don't exist, but rain does, and this is a way of protecting myself against that beastly rain. So if there is a weather forecast, here is an ambient umbrella which will glow, and as you spot it on your way out, you'll be able to tell whether or not the rain is coming, and it will remind you to take it with you. Obviously, in terms of protection as well, we all know that there are things like this teddy bear with cameras in there, and the idea with this one was that it's almost like Harry Potter's invisibility cloak. It allows you to see without being seen. There's lots of uses for health, as Guillaume touched on. We all have the desire to try and live a little bit longer, and actually, if you're not very good at remembering to take your pills, there's a product called Glow Caps, which you can program, and essentially, they will pester you to take your drugs. So if I have to take them at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, but I forget, at 10 past 4, it starts to glow. At 4:15, they start to vibrate. At 4:30, you get a text message saying, come on, take your pills. At 5 o'clock, they will actually telephone you and remind you again and again and again. So again, this is an object which you would imagine almost has a magical ability to remind you. Similarly, there's a thing called the Vitality Sticker, which is a series of accelerometers that you can attach onto all sorts of different things. And again, this goes back into health and fitness. So you could attach this onto, let's say, your bike, and it will tell you how much and how often you use your bike or your toothbrush, and it could help train you to brush your teeth better or more often, or that kind of thing. In terms of mobility, I really like this idea here. This was an ambient bus pole, which is a 7-foot-high bus pole, and actually, if anybody does catch the bus, which I'm sure a lot of us do, nobody in South by Southwest, I don't think they even knew what a bus was, but In terms of knowing whether or not the bus is there, obviously I could get the app out of my pocket, check whether or not the bus is due. In so doing, I'll either miss the bus as it drives past or get run over by the bus because I didn't see it coming. So this pole here will allow me to see from down the street whether or not the bus is about to arrive. If I've got 10 minutes to wait, I can pop into a couple of shops on the way. If I need to run, I will know from the end of the road. And then similarly, we've got other devices. This is something that I've been making, which is a kind of train departure board that lives on your wall, looks nice, and is only useful when you need it. So again, as you're leaving the house, you know how long it is until your next train. And then, of course, once your internet fridge and your vacuum robot cleaner are all done, there's all sorts of different enchanted objects that you can use to entertain yourself and to be expressive. So Guitar Hero is now morphing from being just a game into being an educational device that will teach you how to play the guitar. And also things like the Nokia Push project, which is augmenting your skateboard or your snowboard and then tracking how well you do and gamifying the whole experience if it wasn't fun enough already. So I actually thought the enchanted objects was a really nice, refreshing way of kind of forgetting all the browbeating around what we're going to do with all the big data. You know, once the fridge is talking to the microwave and is talking to your phone, what do we do next? I actually thought, it's simpler than that. It's about creating real objects with uses and, dare I say, magical powers, and breaking them out from behind the screens. It's about creating appropriate user experiences. They could be ambient and glanceable, visible, but actually also theatrical, fun, entertaining. And actually for brands, it is an opportunity to have a physical, real thing in the presence of their customers. And actually, I thought it would be just nice to create something that was nice to use and fun. So, thanks.